Right, boys, I'm back.
How was quarantine, my friend?
Ugh, dull. But I've been fully tested, so apparently I definitely don't have the lurgy.
Just keep coughing into that napkin.
Sorry, what?
Yeah. So it's you and I today, Joe, and we are joined by a third person who's not Andy.
No.
Much taller.
I am definitely not Andy. Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Marginally less better looking as well.
I'll take that.
You don't quite have the fan base Andy has either.
I know, yeah. We were just explaining. Andy has got some fans, haven't he?
He's got
bumped into a few of them on his travels.
That's where he is now. He's actually away just signing autographs, but sticking them on eBay. So this is Karl Meyer with us today, who you may or may not remember from Series 1.
No, long forgotten.
Yeah, I won't remember.
Yeah, I don't know, yeah. Who are you? So you are a
He
Porsche.
buys and sells the odd Porsche in there, don't you?
Yeah, a bit of a wheeler dealer. I think.
How do you, if you averaged your Porsche deals a week or a month, just on head count, how many cars do you reckon you touch?
Probably, that's actually a question that we're monitoring in the business at the moment. So we underwrite a number of Porsches for car dealerships, and out of those underwrites, a percentage will get dealt and we'll buy. So at the moment, anything between 20 and 50 cars, I would say, is underwritten, and it's sort of half of that's getting dealt. And we try not to let that ratio get too far. So you're underwriting lots and lots of stuff that doesn't get dealt. But that is topical at the moment because the ratio in the trade for how many cars you're pricing, so underwriting is just posh word, pricing, the ratio of how many cars we're pricing to how many cars are getting dealt is, I think, a bit of a telling story of what's happening in the trade at the moment. It's higher than usual, considerably higher, about 3 times higher than usual.
So all that told, you should have half an idea what's going on in the market at the moment, which is kind of the point of you being here today.
Yeah, we'll give it a go.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Decent.
Awesome.
Well, we'll dive into that shortly. I do just want to, in case we've forgotten, from Series 1, just want to underline what it is you do. So currently head of 2911.
Yep.
There isn't a website, so it's pointless giving one. It's perpetually in build, isn't it? But follow on Instagram, isn't it? It's at 2911 Porsche Buyer.
Yeah, the Porsche Buyer, or email us or email me at carl@2911.co.uk.
At iCloud.com. But before that, of course, extensive experience in the main dealer network.
Yeah.
Most prominently business manager at Porsche Bournemouth, or most recently.
Yeah. Worked for a couple of Porsche centres and
Did a stretch at head office, didn't you, as well?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, did my time at head office, Porsche Centre Bournemouth, and then saw a big wanting in the Porsche market for a supply of good approved used cars. Most Porsche centres rely on a combination of their group used car buyers and part exchanges to put on their forecourt, and it just doesn't service the full need. So that's where we come in, really.
Excellent. So finger on the pulse and have done for many years. So as Joe kind of pointed out, you are going to be absolutely the man to make some sort of semblance out of what is going on in the Porsche market at the moment.
We'll try, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So you and I did a video for my YouTube channel at the start of the year on cars to buy for 2020.
Yeah.
And
you're going to give him marks on how well he did.
Yeah. The funny thing is, we released it, and about a week later, the world has had its wobble, and kind of put paid to it. But fascinating, really, because you'll know and speak to more people than I do in the industry. But I have heard so many independent Porsche specialists talking about best months ever,
and in the OPC. So
really?
Yes, so 3 of the largest, or what I would gather is the largest centres in terms of volume in the country, all had record-breaking months over the reopening of lockdown. So June, July, August, just numbers never seen. Best, without naming names of those centres, best month for 25, 30 years plus.
Right. And is that for new cars or approved used?
Both.
Really?
There was a ton of pent up demand, which is buying demand, which definitely, as soon as the Porsche centres reopened their doors, has absolutely
I reckon everyone was sat at home on their hands, got really bored, and then all the people that were sat on the fence collectively all at once went, let's go and do it.
100%. Yeah. And also, I think, we've talked about this between the three of us, but there's just no doubt that loads and loads of money from Her Majesty has ended up in the car trade. There's no doubt about it. Bounce back loans have ended up in the motor trade. Furlough money has ended up in the motor trade. There's absolutely no doubt about it.
So, I reckon at some point that's got to come out in the wash. I know it's not the topic of our podcast, but indirectly, I think there's a whole load of money that's sloshed around, like you said, that's found its way into gaps it shouldn't have done, which include nice cars.
Yeah.
But it has to go back around, so surely I'd be interested to see what you think in terms of the world ending and all the Porsches coming back for sale again.
Well, yeah, happy to touch on that if you want now.
What do you reckon? What's your opinion?
Right now, there's no doubt there's a Mexican standoff happening between buyer and seller. So it has definitely been a seller's market for the last 3 months. And that's so if you were selling your Porsche to a dealership, for example, you've been able to ask for some crazy money. There's been a huge spike because the dealers have been short of stock, and their sales inquiry levels, which is something that we monitor really, really closely, are through the roof, albeit a little bit false because not all of those are turning into deals, but the inquiry levels are up. So if you were selling a car for the last couple of months, you've been able to really ask for more than the car is worth and get away with it. And there's been some hilarious stories of cars, which is a complete contrast to 2.5, 3 months beforehand, when actually everyone was, really worried that their car was going to be worth nothing. So you've had all of this extra money, you've had all of this extra pent up buying demand, and that has just driven sales, which is then the sales have translated to sales managers shouting at their group buyers saying, buy more cars, buy more cars, buy more cars. And the buyers desperately trying to deal on cars. So
they've got to keep up with that demand somehow, haven't they?
They have, yeah. So we always see this in the summer to a little point, but it's just gone crazy this year. And I think now you're at the Mexican standoff stage. So you've actually got a little bit of concern from the buyers that actually that's coming to an end. We're coming off summer season. Things will normalise a little bit and do what they always do in the Porsche world, where sales just level back to normal levels again, because we always see a bit of an increase in the summer. But I think it's very much that the sellers who own these cars, private people who are either looking for part exchange values or just looking to cash out, I think they're still hoping that they can still chase the prices out and chase between various different centres, because obviously they come to us and we're seeing who's playing who off against each other. And I think that's quite a dangerous game at the moment. I think it's likely to swing back round for the buyers. So my advice is, I said this to a couple of friends today who are selling Porsches, said, look, don't miss the boat. If you've got a sensible number on the table, grab it now, because it will swing round to be. It can only last as a Mexican standoff for so long before actually no deals get done, and that's almost where you're at the moment, before actually people start then just taking an offer on the table. I think we're at that point.
Is that, Karl, where you were saying there's this Mexican standoff approaching, and attitudes, if you like, will change?
Yeah.
Is that with regards to things normalising, or before things would start turning the other way? And we're in a thing where people are trying to get rid of cars.
That is a very, 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 very good question. And to be completely honest, I think the most truthful thing to say is we don't know. That really is. I don't know. You've got a really strange thing, I think, that's going to play out in the next 3 months to 6 months in the Porsche world. And I'm intrigued to see how it plays out as much as anybody else. The directors, the buyers of Porsche centres are sat thinking, surely it can't be record-breaking months forever. Okay, so they don't want to be overpaying for stock anymore. So that is slowing down. The flip side of that is that Porsche have not been making cars in the usual volumes for the last 6 months. So if you want a 992 4S, they're like GT3s in paint to sample at GT3 RS. They are really rare cars. If you've got a 992 4S, I think there's 7 or 8 in the network for sale. as used cars.
Wow. Okay.
They are fetching strong.
You think there'd be hundreds of them, wouldn't you?
You absolutely would. And the reality is, you can't buy them for love nor money. So, so Porsche haven't been making cars, and the Porsche centres know that. Certainly with 911 stock, they're really, really good news. Certain Macan models, certain Cayenne models are really, really good news. So you wonder if that could balance each other out. You wonder if the over on one could balance out the under on the other. There's another element which we're sort of all just really mindful of, and that is people's employment. So unemployment is definitely rising in the UK, and not just that. Well, let me put it this way: the corporate car park no longer exists. So the home of your average Panamera, Macan, Cayenne, certainly those cars aren't travelling to offices anymore. We've bought a few cars this week actually from customers who've just said, I've asked them, why are you selling this? I used to commute. I don't commute anymore. So I just wonder how much at the early stage of that. So does that mean we'll have a glut of more cars coming in for resale because people just don't need them? People just aren't using them anymore.
So you're specifically saying like Panameras there as an example of.
I think it will affect more some models more than others. Yeah.
What cars or what specific Porsche models, in your experience, have done particularly well in the last 3 months? What cars have been amazingly good news? 992s, I assume. Yeah,
992s, unbelievably good. Probably my favourite surprise in all of that is 718, because last year Porsche centres were prepared to do deals on those cars. Now 718s, everyone wants to buy them back into stock again. That
really surprises it.
Me too.
You and I have spoken previously, not on the podcast, about those and how kind of going forward a few years down the line, they're going to be potentially hard to sell because they're the awkward four-banger, the GTS.
It wasn't long ago that I think both of us were thinking, well, we might go and try and nick one for a bit of summer fun, because they tipped off the side of a cliff for a while.
Yeah, we were being offered some really, really, I think Joe and I talked about a couple that I can remember just at the beginning of the lockdown. 718s starting with very sensibly low to mid twos in the trade.
No, really,
and you'd really struggle. Well, you wouldn't do it. 981s again have gone up. So your baseline price for a Boxster 981, any amount of miles on the clock, the tiniest spec on planet Earth has gone up from a 20 grand, 21 grand car retail to 24 grand again.
981s they've been good news for a long time now, though, haven't they?
Yeah, they really have performed so well if you look at them over the years. Yeah, they're getting on a bit.
718 car, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here.
Yeah.
Do you still stand by that comment from a few months ago that 718s might be harder to sell in years to come? Or were you just giving me lip service?
Yeah, oh my God, mate! Honestly, I think it's worth revisiting everything we said on that last podcast because so much has changed. So much of the game has changed. I actually said this to a client today who's got a GT3 RS, and we said he asked us for a price only about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and he genuinely couldn't believe that we are in a completely different market today than we were 3 or 4 weeks ago, and that is true.
Negatively, I would assume.
For that particular car, not in a only because we've had this ridiculous roller coaster. So to give you a timeline on it, people forget that Brexit was a massive issue in the car world in January and February. Nobody's talking about that anymore. So we came off of a particularly cautious previous 6 months, actually the worst 6 months the motor trade had seen forever, and then went straight into January, February, and things started to pick up. You then hit March the 23rd, and things fell off a cliff because everyone was terrified at what this could or couldn't mean. In actual fact, what did happen was as the people that were buying cars were selling loads and loads and loads of cars. So the market didn't die a death, which everyone thought it would. Then you come into the summer and it just exploded. June the 1st, all the car dealerships reopened up and it went crazy, and there were no deals on anything, and it was full up money, and people were buying stock at a high price. Come into August, we all knew we were overpaying for cars in the motor trade, and now we're on the back end of that where I think most people are in the trade are thinking, you know what, this furlough is coming to an end. Unemployment is creeping up. People are not commuting so much. So for sure, we are thinking that it's been a roller coaster. It's been up, then down, then up, then down, then up, then down, and then we've got other things to contend with. Obviously, with Brexit again next year. So at the moment, it feels very, very positive and very good in the motor trade. Customers still buying cars, dealerships still selling cars. But yeah, my gosh, I just think there's so much to look at. I think 718s will continue to be pretty good news actually at the moment, just purely because I think things have moved on 6 months from where they were. I think the market, Porsche haven't made the volumes of cars that they normally would have, so there's a deficit of 718s.
Right. Okay. I think it's like we've all realised in lockdown, everyone realises kind of, life's too short and whatnot. So maybe if people have been hanging back, just think, well, look, whatever somebody's version of entry level is, like no, I'll take that back. Whatever somebody's version of dream car is, well, what's kind of holding me back from it? And
I think you're right.
Jumping the gun,
Yeah. I think there's been a lot of that, even in our social circle, and there's a lot of people that have just thought, you know what, life is too short. Life is too short. There's definitely been a mentality of that, and people just thinking, well, might as well have some fun.
Yeah. What about air-cooled cars, Karl? Because obviously they're close to your heart anyway. 3.2 Carrera owner yourself.
Yeah. I've got to be honest. We actually haven't personally, as a business, dealt in lots and lots and lots of air-cooled cars. Actually, not the normal levels. I'm not sure if that's because people have been holding on to them a little bit stronger. The classic car market in general has definitely been up. Definitely up, as in, probably 50% up in terms of prices. And I have seen that in the few air-cooled cars that we've dealt, but I can't say that we've got loads of experience of air-cooled cars this summer, which is not what you normally expect. I don't know. You guys obviously are involved with various car clubs and bits and pieces. Is there any reason that you can think that we haven't seen the volume of air-cooled transactions, of people holding on to them and using them?
They're a lot more of an occasional car, aren't they? They're an occasional purchase. I think where something like, whether it's a 718, 911, anything modern, you can use it all the time. And I think something air cooled generally is going to be a bit more of a garage ornament for most people anyway.
I just don't seem to think there's as many of them for sale as there once was. I think in the boom of 2014-15, people that had, say, a 20 grand car that had become a 70 grand car, well, that's kind of circumstance changing, isn't it? So flip it was, I think now people, even if they're in a kind of a state of relative disrepair, they're just saying, well, I can't afford to restore it, but I'll certainly sit on it for a while.
I think that's what's happening. People are just doing exactly that. They're just sitting on stuff of that sort of nature, because there's no value either way. There's no value in selling it because the market's picked up particularly. Long term it's going to hold on to whatever it is. So that's my 2 pence, I reckon.
I think you're probably right, actually. In reflection, I think that sounds really, really plausible. I think the people now that own air-cooled cars they're not speculators. Yeah. They're real, true lifelongers that want them and have, want to tick the box and own the car. So we've definitely been a lot fewer transactions for those.
Yeah. So you said next 6 months, for example, when nobody knows what's going to happen. Yeah. Fair play for your honesty on that. But are you worried or are you optimistic, or, between what kind of gatepost do you sit there?
I'm really optimistic for the next 6 months. That might be a double-edged sword to say that, but actually I can see what's so something that we have in the dealership network called order demand, and that is when you walk into your Porsche Centre and you put a deposit down and you spec your own car, but it hasn't got a build slot physically against that car, but you put that in, the Porsche Centre then loads that into their system, PCGB and Germany then look at that and say, right, that centre needs a Panamera build slot because they've just taken an order for one that they don't have. The order demand going forward in the Porsche world for the next 6 months is awesome. It's healthy. It's really healthy.
Yeah.
To my mind, a lot healthier than it was several years ago. when things like air cooled and all the rest of it were doing very well. So Taycan is, I think, if you just look at the brand, what's out at the moment, it's really on fire. The brand's really on fire. Taycan couldn't have come at a better time. So you've got loads of basically government support in terms of fully electric vehicles being run as company cars with zero benefit in kind for the next year, and 2 years 1% and 2% the year after that. So that's come at a perfect time. 992S just out, full up order bank till next year for the UK. I think we obviously GT product we probably know better than most, but I'm keen to know actually if you think we will see the first 992 GT3s land this year. Oh, he's smiling.
Oh, we obviously know something. Look at that. That's a raised eyebrow.
Not
officially.
I have to say, I have not been reliably informed, so there's a caveat to it. But I can't see it happening anytime just yet, I'm afraid. Yeah.
Okay.
Just to defer from that a little bit, do you think the whole GT bubble softened off a little bit?
Good question, to be honest with you.
The only reason I ask is that there seems to be lots of, I know it's not a full-blown 911 GT3 or whatever, but I've heard lots of people say that lots of centres have got GT4 slots sat on the shelf.
Yeah.
And they can't sell them. They're struggling to sell them, which I thought was
I wouldn't
crazy.
say struggling to sell them, but I would say the buzz of having to fight with your centre or climb over somebody else on a list is not quite what it was, for sure. There are, if you know where to look, there are there are cars that can be had,
which is great, to be honest with you. That you shouldn't have to buy a Targa and a Macan and whatnot to be considered.
Do you reckon that will filter down to some of the 911 stuff? Because
I'll tell you what's really interesting. So another element that people don't add into the whole numbers thing is Porsche centres. So what is there, 52, 51-ish, 52 Porsche centres in the UK now. And of those centres, all of those centres are under pressure to expand. All of those centres are, when they expand and they make that investment into their expansion, they do get more allocation. There's also newer Porsche centres cropping up. I think we've had 4 in the last 20 months. So there is more allocation for cars out there. I wonder that myself. Do you
think
that.
The UK as a country is getting more allocation?
Yeah. I've heard some interesting. I've heard for the first time that we are getting allocation from China on certain cars as well.
Ooh.
I've turned off China for certain models. Unfortunately, what I've heard is nothing particularly exciting. I've heard it's a big allocation of Macan has been given to the UK because China turning off a bit. I'll be interested to see how that plays out actually with China if they're back up to their usual numbers. I can't imagine it would take long for them to go back up to that. But it's interesting, isn't it?
I vaguely remember, Carl, actually had a press release come through maybe 6 weeks ago now on figures for the last quarter.
Oh yeah.
And China is down quite significantly.
Yeah.
And actually what was propping the figures up for Porsche was Europe and particularly Germany.
Yes, I saw that too. Yeah, Germany picked up the slack big time. Yeah, which plays into another little conspiracy theory that I have. Is I've heard, again, I'm looking at Lee for confirmation here. Poor Lee, there's probably a lot of stuff you can't say, but I've heard on relatively good authority that paint to sample will be opening up more freely for the UK across the model range. I don't know if that's confirmed or not. Have you heard anything?
No, I haven't, to be honest with you. I've not heard anything on that.
Be nice if it does.
Well, I've always thought that paint to sample for Porsche is really cheap compared to other manufacturers. Ridiculously so.
Yeah.
I don't know. A lot of people do it and whatnot, and it's I don't know. Their kind of stock colour palette is pretty decent, isn't it, these days?
I don't know. I'm smiling at Joe. Well, look, Joe, you're the only one out of the three of us who actually paid with his own money to buy any of these cars recently. So, what do you think of Porsche's colour range?
I think it is decent. I think it's always nice to have something that's your own, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of paint sample colours seem to end up being historic Porsche colours anyway, don't they?
Yeah.
So it's not many people stray from the original colour palette, do they?
Yeah, it's a bit funny. Like on Instagram, you see there's almost like an anti-PTS movement.
Is there?
Yeah, just a little bit. To be fair, like it's come from certain influencers, North America sort of way.
Right.
People with a bit of a social clout in the Porsche world, and I kind of get it. You know, you go to a Cars and Coffee. Oh, there's another paint sample 991. Wow.
Really?
No, well, it's just, when it kind of takes away how special it is, because like the concept itself isn't rare, and also
okay.
I mean, you see a lot of them, don't you? A lot, comparatively speaking. But someone will have their heart and soul set on a certain shade of a PTS, and it's one of 10 globally or something.
Yeah.
Think of like textbook historical colours that people love, say like a ruby stone or amethyst, all of a sudden there's loads of them cropping up, and that kind of takes away from PTS, I feel.
Yes.
So yeah,
maybe it could be done like a private number plate type of system, where if you get offered a PTS slot, there can only be certain amount of certain colour allocated.
A bit like a Singer.
Like a limited colour run.
Taken for the area, that's it.
If you want a viola metallic, you sorry sir, we've already sold 2 of those in the world this year. You can't have another one.
That's funny, because I love the PTS thing. I think if you can have the car you want in the colour you want, fill your boots. I mean, Christ, I'd have anything in ruby stone tomorrow. Yeah,
that is just an awesome colour, isn't it? But then, is that because we don't see them in the UK? You guys know we went to Belgium and walked into a centre in Belgium. Everything was paint sample. It was amazing. It felt like it was, in a sweet shop.
But I think that's just culturally. I think in the UK we're more conservative. I mean, it's historically, if you look at any of the previous generations 911s and you look at the for sale ads, it's I mean, Christ, if you turn the clock back to 997s, I mean, trying to find one that's not silver, grey, or black is quite difficult.
Yeah, 996 is the same, to be fair. I just find it a little bit posery, I think. I don't know, just...
I think the market
so you've got to order your nice new 992 C4S, I'm guessing, tomorrow. You can choose any colour you like. What's it going to be?
Well, I would refer to the current colour palette and say Gentry Blue is an absolutely cracking shade.
That'd be your go-to?
I think it's a stunning colour. Yeah, I really, really do. Yeah, big fan of it. I quite like the whole of the current colour choices stock, other than the Aventurine green, is it? I'm not bowled away.
I really like Aventurine.
Really?
I really do.
Is that because all these colours are sort of, they're in at the moment? Do you know what I mean? Is it because they're trending currently? Because we're seeing them, we're familiar to them. Is that what makes us like
I
them?
definitely think Joe's got a point there.
Possibly, I think so.
Yeah.
I think
Go on then, Joe. Let's just stick with one model then. 992. You're in the dealership.
Yeah.
You've been gifted one of the only few 992. Let's say a 2S. You're more of a 2S man, I think. 2S 992, and you've got a paint sample build slot. What's on your list?
Ruby Stone, done.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I don't. So Ruby Stone's by corporate colours, but I don't think it works on a big 911. I think it works on a little 911.
I totally agree, but I just think the comedy value of driving a great big pink 911 is hilarious.
That you would almost need like an accompanying T-shirt that just says "It's Ruby Stone Red." Yeah. You have to wear it absolutely everywhere. Every time you drive that car, nice pink
and on the
car.
back, it's salmon.
Yeah. What about you then, Carl?
Well, my favourite PTS colour is still peppermint, but I don't think that would work again because it's a flat colour.
That would be.
That would look terrible, wouldn't it? Unless it's got a big wing on it and maybe
that could
an RS.
work. See, I disagree. I think a peppermint 992 would look awesome.
Really?
I think the flat colours. I think if I was going 992,
I'm not a fan of metallics. That's the trouble.
I think I'd go for one of the late 70s, early 80s. Lighter blues like iris or something like that, metallic.
Really?
I think a metallic colour looks good on a 992.
Interesting.
And I've seen this on a 991 actually. You'll tell me, Lee. What's the 70s chocolate brown called?
Copper brown.
Yeah, I think that would look really nice. That's a bit flat, but I think that would actually look really nice on a 992. That could look nice.
There was they did have a 991 press car C4S Gen 1 that was copper brown metallic exterior, and inside had the it was what was it called, like the light brown.
I can't
remember the name of it, but it was this much lighter brown, and like when you opened the door and just took in the contrast of the exterior brown and then the lighter brown,
that looked really pretty.
I just thought, this is a Twix on wheels. Do you know what I mean? It was super granddad spec. Like, but
wasn't that the they did the little roadshow of 992s around the centres. They did the launch in the centres. I'm sure that was the car that they had in Bournemouth for the launch. That was brown with brown interior.
Oh, really? I didn't see it.
I'm sure. I've probably got a picture somewhere. It was brown on brown, and it was exactly that. It was granddad spec.
Yeah.
I like that, though. Am I wrong for liking that? It's a bit...
Well, you're of a certain age. Yeah, I think.
It all comes down to the spec, doesn't it? Like, I think, like that car, I think, even had... the steering wheel wasn't the sport wheel, and it was PDK with like the clicker shifter, and it was just proper like
that is granddad
spec, you know, really not the one.
But then this is topical because I was having this conversation with Joe. So you missed the 991S cab that I had, and that was a 2012 car, and
early 991 you said,
so it was one of the first 991S's, and it was ironic how I'm 41 now, so nearly 8 years from when that car first got launched, and when I would have been in the dealer network selling that car new, this car would have been my worst spec. So I'll describe it to you. It was midnight blue metallic. It was the light grey and agate interior. It didn't have sports exhaust, and that's probably the highlights. Today,
Chrono
8
or
years,
anything like that?
8 years later, a dark blue metallic with light grey interior with chrono, no exhaust, is my perfect spec car. I loved it. Absolutely brilliant. And it had home link to open up your garage. So it was so funny. I just thought, isn't this weird? I
loved it for 14 days.
I loved it for that. Yeah, I did love it for 2 weeks before the dealer inside me got its way and had the car away.
Evidence for sale, isn't it? Evidence for sale. Excellent.
Oh dear. Yeah, but isn't that funny? I actually really appreciate. I just thought a car like that is a classy bit of kit. You don't want to be going around noising out everywhere where you go around. And it was just it's a perfect car. So I think it's interesting how your taste on specs change as well. They have for me as I've got older, for sure. Yeah.
Do you reckon, Lee, a few years ago you would have thought that you'd be driving an Irish green 911?
No, fair shout, to be fair.
Yeah,
Absolutely
that wasn't
not.
cool 10 years ago, was it? And now it's majorly on
Kind
point.
of like...
It's still questionable if it's cool. No, I'm joking. I'm fully in the Irish green camp. I take that back.
I just, as I've kind of said before, I just love that colour. And I will actually say that I think Irish green looks good on any era of 911. I think Irish green and Guards red, whether it's a 901 or a 992, anywhere in between.
Ooh, that's a really good shout. There's not many colours you could say that about, but both of those I agree
but also,
with you.
it's not changed. So, like, there's always been sort of a white, a red, and a yellow. But over the years, like, the yellow has changed. We've gone speed, and now like racing.
Yeah,
I just think
Guards is Guards, isn't it?
Yeah, Guards has always been Guards. Whereas like racing yellow on 991s again. Too big, and it just like a banana on wheels.
Some cars it just doesn't work for.
It is difficult, but I think Irish does suit.
I'm so glad that your car didn't stay blue.
Yeah, me too, to be honest with you. And it kind of goes against, absolutely does go against this whole PTS thing I was saying, but it's an old 996. It's totally different to be like a new GT3 RS, paint to sample, low miles. And yes, it's a flipper car, by the way. It is a bit of a different sort of thing. I can't remember the question. So I'll just get back off the high horse.
Contrast that. If you were given a new Panamera SE hybrid build slot with the option of paint to sample.
Can I give it back?
Oh dear.
Sorry, go on.
What paint to sample, where would you be on that?
Panamera.
Would you still be Ruby Stone and that confident as you were with your 992?
That would be a big pink car.
It's not much bigger than a 992.
Yeah, window tints for sure.
I keep seeing those in black, and they actually look really good.
Yeah,
they look great. Yeah, they look great.
I think they're a good looking car, which I never thought I'd say about the Panamera.
I think they've got it absolutely right. I saw one head on coming towards us the other day, and I just, for the first time, actually really looked at it and thought that is as pretty as a 992 and 911 coming towards you. They've really got that car.
You said something to me a few years ago, Carl, that still resonates. And away from 911s, Porsche always takes 1 or 2 generations to nail the look.
Seems to be, doesn't it?
Yeah. So what do you think of the Taycan/Taycan?
Oh my gosh, I honestly think they have nailed that out of the box.
Really?
To see one of those things on the road is perfect in terms of its dimensions. It sits on the road at the perfect size, and it's not as big as people think. It's just such a great size. I'm so pleased how that came out. Everyone in the Porsche network thought the Mission E project would never look anything like its first incarnation on the road like it does.
It's rare,
I'm surprised
actually, for the production car to be so close to the
my gosh,
It's almost like they'd already decided. It's like they did in reverse almost.
Yeah.
It was maybe some clever PR there actually.
Well, it's a bunch of new designers and a lot younger designers, isn't it? So maybe this is a change. So maybe from now on, what we see as the potential, I don't know, the sort of pre-production mule, it actually is what you get.
Yeah.
Actually, I think the uptake's been amazing, hasn't it? Was it? I don't know. Somebody the other day, was it you telling me? I don't know. Someone was telling me that they've pulled half the Audi line off and onto the Taycan line because the orders are coming out their ears at the moment.
Audi line?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
No,
well, so I mean, when the car was launching, the kind of the word was that 18-month. They've got 18 months worth of deposits.
Yeah.
But then they're kind of very, from what I have seen, very, very, very aggressively kind of pushing those cars out to people for test drives, calling up. Your Targa 4S is kind of coming to its term. Do you want a Taycan?
Oh, that's interesting.
And I kind of think, well, if you're kind of done that kind of well for initial uptake, is there a need to be so aggressive with the product? It's almost quite unlike Porsche.
Yeah, but they need to get a lot of product out there to prove their point, don't they?
Well,
they've said, what do they say? Within 5 years, 1 and 2 is going to be electric. What was the number? They said now.
Less.
Well, we said, didn't we, a couple of episodes ago on this podcast that we all had a go in the car, and just conceptually, great idea, but in reality, it's just not quite there yet in terms of like infrastructure to have one. What do you think actually? So working in the industry, like have people been handing them back?
Funnily enough, no. Well, actually, that's not true. We had one hand back, and it was somebody who came, but that is genuinely a 1 out of, probably 100 odd sold.
Okay, so the exception, not the rule then.
Yeah, and outside of that, the other cars that have gone, one was actually to a chap who's looking to do 40,000 miles a year as a consultant, and he worked it out and looked at it and actually done more research than I had, and said, no, I genuinely, this is the right car for me. I got told very recently, because we were looking into this, that there are 3, I think sorry to get the numbers wrong, it was a considerable number, X times how many charging points there are in the UK than petrol pumps, which you probably could believe, but it was a shock. So I, same as you, I thought, well, the infrastructure is just not quite there, and I still feel like it isn't. That's my gut feel. No, but apparently the numbers are loads and loads of, apparently there's loads of charger points out there compared to petrol pumps.
No way.
I think
I don't know where they all are. I
think
nobody knows where they are.
There's a huge amount of charging points, but I think a lot of them aren't. Yeah, they're not fast chargers. They're not high power. They're either on a different system or a different network.
Yeah, you need apps or prepaid car. It's not like, with fuel, whether it's Shell, BP, Gulf, whatever, you turn up, doesn't matter the brand, you can put a lump of petrol in your car.
Yes.
That you can't get electric. It's everyone's.
Maybe that's half the problem. There's so many different networks because they're not all joined up at the moment. There's loads of charging points, but none of them are talking to each other. So you kind of, it's a bit of a mess, isn't it? I feel like it needs to straighten itself out before catch up.
What do you think? Do you think the answer to it is it being centralised in some way?
I think they need to sort of make the whole thing a bit more universal in terms of, like you said, you can rock up anywhere, and a unit of electric is loosely the same price, and you can just turn up and tap your card
I'm
and go.
surprised that we haven't seen. Genuinely, really surprised. I thought this would be the first stage of electric cars in Europe. I'm surprised that you haven't seen a BP power station for cars or a Texaco power station. I'm surprised you haven't seen the fuel companies jump on it before anybody else does and just be propping up loads of state, like what Tesla have done. Exactly what Tesla have done.
There's a company called Ionity. The Ionity network is being made up of the VW group, obviously including Porsche, BMW are in there, Mercedes are in there, and that is with the idea of creating a pan-European fast charging infrastructure. And it is being rolled out. I think we said on a on a previous podcast that I think as we went into lockdown there were 8 fast chargers in the UK, and now that is going up. But the reality is there were terrible, 8 of them, and there are a lot of Taycans around. You see loads of them at Porsche dealerships everywhere. So
it's chicken and egg, though, isn't it? They got to sell a load of cars to warrant the infrastructure to get people to invest in the infrastructure, and you need the infrastructure to sell the cars. So I think
that's what's so impressive. What Tesla have done, then, really, it really does highlight just they
were there early, weren't they? When they were doing all this 5 years ago or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think now it's that catch up, isn't it? We just got the network's got to catch up with the cars. The cars are probably already further ahead than the network, and until they get a bit more reliable, everyone's going to have the same issues.
Yeah.
So I want to. Well, we've got 2 things on the agenda before we finish. The first one is I just want to extract a golden nugget from you, really, of wisdom on the market. So I mean, over the next 6 months, if it might turn into a buyer's market, but like, what is the car to buy?
My gosh. Well, I think as always, I think 911s are just as in new cars or used cars or both, maybe.
Both. Yeah, well, give us one of each. Why not?
Okay. I think so for next 6 months, if you want to see minimum depreciation, if you can get yourself into a 992 non-S product, I think that the numbers on those look low and the demand looks high from what we can see. And they are more than enough performance, as you both know. I mean, honestly, for the first time ever, I would definitely, if I was walking into a centre looking for a 911, I'd be very, very comfortable with putting down my money on a non-S product. It's more than enough performance. So I think a lot of people can see that. So I think people are very comfortable now buying that car. It's not the bragging rights of having to have an S car, I feel. I think, having said that, I think 992 S's will be great news. I think Taycans for the next little while will continue to be good news for the next 6 months. If you have one, I think they'll suffer minimal depreciation. If you want to be really clever, don't go heavy on the spec. That seems to be the ones that depreciate better, as in less. And that's actually ironically across the entire range at the moment. We're seeing that
less is more
stuff. Yeah, less is more. Absolutely. I think 981s, get yourself a nice Boxster GTS, brilliant. Just going well. They've gone nowhere price wise for the last 12 months. I think that will continue to be a safe car, I reckon. You almost want to play the game and think, what's the worst case? But I don't think there's anything modern Porsche. Actually, I'll tell you what is looking like the demand is very high for the supply is actually things like Macan GTS.
Yeah.
And Cayenne Coupe GTS, I just think looks like an awesome weapon. I've yet to drive one. I don't know if either of you two have sat in them or driven one yet. No. But yeah, the reviews have been very, very good. The order demand looks strong for that across the network.
Maybe let's get loads of choice in there.
Yeah,
there's tons, isn't
So
there?
good, yeah.
What would you, I mean, let's flip it on its head. What would you absolutely stay away from? What would you run a mile from at the moment?
God.
GT product? Do you think that's still a safe place to put your money?
You know what? I absolutely think that GT product is. I really think we are. People keep talking about the investment time and cars going up. I not only think are we coming through that, I think we've gone through it and we're past it now.
Yeah.
I really think we're in the next era now of GT cars. I think they will. I think you'll see that now. So the 992 GT3s, I think those will go into the hands of people that really, really want to buy them. I think people are too afraid to bet on them being a, overs car and all that business.
Because any new GT, the only new GT stuff at the moment, I suppose, is all the 991 GT4, all the 991.2. They're all delivered, aren't they? Or are they still getting delivered?
Yeah, no,
production.
Long gone,
all done.
Yeah. So they're all done. Are they? I mean, they're all well under list, aren't they?
Do you know what? So GT3s are a shade under list, 10 to 15% under list maximum. They're pretty close to list. Gen 2 GT3 RS is still interesting. I did this exercise only earlier this week. They're still overs, and they're 2 years old. You look at 2018 cars that may be listed at 160, and you would list that car. We just did one back in the last week. You list it at 189. And I thought, actually, given everything the world, non-Visat car, given everything the world's been through in the last bloody 2 years,
it's still over at 2 years.
I can't believe that car is still asking overs, and it's getting it. So great.
Well, I'll tell you what I noticed last week, looking at the very same thing, Gen 2 991 GT3 RS prices, was there is a definite, which obviously there should be, a definitive gap between non-Visat and Visat pack cars, but that gap is still mirroring the cost of the Visat pack.
Interesting.
Yeah, I can't remember how much that. So it's 20 to 30 grand kick on.
Is that what? Yeah, actually, I don't know. Is that what the Visat pack was net over in the dealership?
and there is still that cushion between Visat and non-Visat pack cars, which I thought was quite interesting. Really, I thought that would be quite a gimmicky thing that people would just kind of for the batch 2 cars.
No,
if you're at that end of the market and you want one, I mean, then you want
the best of the best.
If you're into that sort of level of buying. Yeah, and you're going to buy the car, you might as well get the one with all the bits, and
and also don't forget that RS Visat car, that is still outside of a GT2 RS, that is still the best GT product car Porsche will have for sale for at least 12 months.
Yeah,
so that car has got another maybe 1 or 2 track day seasons in it for people to go and enjoy, or it still be the coolest thing in somebody's garage, know. So I think the kudos value of having a Visat car is still really, really high at the moment.
And you can feel the weight difference in those, by the way. I even myself was thinking beforehand, I'm not kind of too sure about that. 30 kilos, etc. Yeah, you can definitely feel the difference in the weight. Yeah, and actually, like even it's typical Porsche, isn't it? It's the sum of its parts. So a Visat pack car has carbon paddles rather than like the alley ones are non-Visat pack. Yeah, and even like the travel distance on the
you can feel
paddles
that
is so much kind of more reduced. Yeah, there's almost like not as much. Well, you don't say slop in an RS, but plate. There's just the travel distance is minimal, and just all these kind of small tweaks. But without a doubt, you can definitely feel the weight, which again is good. I was kind of sceptical when Visat pack was first announced. I thought it was a little bit gimmicky, but
no, it does seem to be, doesn't it? Do you know even GT2 RSs they're punching numbers again? I'm quite happy to see that. Actually, they're genuinely transacting comfortably over 3s again, which they came off of that, and people asking 340 to 349 now retail, and they're getting not far off it.
But that can't last, surely.
I'm confused that it is at the moment, because they certainly in the trade they dipped nicely into the 2s, and they were upper 2s, early 3s. They shot right back up, and they comfortably seem to be making.
It's a bit of a limited commodity on those, though, isn't it? Yeah. It's always going to be. You only need a few people to decide to sell them at the same time, and it could easily sway that.
On the note of performance cars, I have to touch on something rather important that happened this week with Porsche Motorsport and the GT4 Sprint Challenge. Are you familiar with what happened this week, Lee?
No, I love the fact, by the way, that their main sponsor is the Cayman Islands.
Oh, it's brilliant, isn't it?
Is it?
Very good, very apt. Yeah, exactly.
Just that. Okay, cool.
But anyway, I didn't see the main.
If it's Cayman related news, Lee's not going to know, is he?
No, he's glazed over already. But you do know the reason. So
Lee, can you put your phone down, please?
Quick toilet break.
So you guys all around the table will know a little bit about it, and we've got a friend who's in that racing series, who's actually a chap who had never stepped foot in a racing car till 4 or 5 years ago, John Westbrook, and this week was his first race in the in GT4 Sprint Challenge series. Sorry, third race in Challenge, and he won first place and second place on the two races, which is absolutely mega. And it's just, I don't know. I genuinely, I've been keeping quite close to it because of our relationship with John, and we sponsor we sponsor both of the cars. But I don't know. It just, honestly, it feels so cool. It feels to me a little bit like the real Porsche motorsport spirit of what things, how I imagine things to have been in the 60s. You know, it's just real proper salt of the earth racing, and it's just so cool to be watching it and to see somebody who's done a journey with Porsche of buying a few road cars, loving them, doing a few track days, loving that, getting some racing tuition, loving that, getting a GT car on the you know, getting on a Porsche Centres list and getting a GT car and pushing himself, and to actually see somebody walk away with a trophy with his name and Porsche on it, it's been really cool to sort of see that and bring back a bit of passion into the motorsport side of Porsche.
Well, it's called the motorsport pyramid, isn't it? And I mean, there are so many, going right to the very top, so many works drivers that have come from within and within, you know, Carrera Cup, Super Cup, etc. And the whole reason the GT4 Championship was brought in, wasn't it, was to put a rung in between, I think, like maybe the Porsche Club Championship, which, although the cost of the car up front, if you're building a Porsche Club Championship car from scratch, is similar money,
right?
There's far more maintenance because they're 996, 997, etc. The GT4, I mean, like the engine just lasts forever on it, doesn't it, on the Club Sport?
It's genuinely meant to be a very developed bomb-proof bit of kit, and it seems to be.
Yeah, a race car that doesn't need, you know, rebuilding every few hours is absolutely incredible. And it bridges the gap, like I say, between the Porsche Club Championship and Carrera Cup, which is absolutely astronomical money to do these days.
Yeah.
So it is great news to the Porsche brand, and tops to Mr. Westbrook for that. I have actually asked if he can come on here. And he said, "Oh, maybe," which I think he's like, no.
No, maybe's always a yes, surely.
Well, there you go, John. If you're listening to this, I think you're booked for the next.
You're up next.
He's a very sort of quiet, humble sort of chap, but he would be a great guest actually, because the journey that he's followed has been, it's the Porsche dream to probably most of us actually. It certainly inspired me to want to think, God, I need to get some more track days under your belt, and get involved with Porsche Motorsport again.
Tops, as we say, top man John, we'd love to get you on at some point. So,
definitely.
We always just wrap up with one more little piece of news, because the Road to Redline family is growing, essentially. So Karl over here has put the effort in with his good lady's got a bun in the oven.
Yes.
And baby Carrera's en route, isn't it?
When's Porsche arrive?
Well, we were saying off air that I've been pretty much vetoed from anything car name related, and I am the guy that if I could convince Alondra to go for Porsche as a name, I would do it. So I'm reaching out to the Redline family to say if anyone's got any good suggestions of Porsche related names that I could just get in there under the radar as maybe a middle name. We don't know if it's a boy or a girl yet, so all come as welcome for names. Any ideas? Actually, Lee, you had a good one, didn't you? Baby Metzger, I think.
Baby Metzger, go with that. Ultra reliable, will always be on time. Fastidious in everything they do. Yeah, exactly that.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
As opposed to Baby Four Banger.
Yeah. No, mate, that's really good
Thanks,
news.
guys.
And we appreciate
really
you coming
sweet,
back on Road to Redline and offering your perpetual Porsche market wisdom, isn't it?
Yeah, good little insight. Thanks, I think I think you did defer the question. I think as a bit of a wrap up.
Yeah.
Keep it short. Which car would you run a mile from at the moment? You got to upset somebody.
Okay.
He's just going for his client base, isn't he?
I am. It's always a bit,
So in the morning, your phone is going to ring with lots of people with.
I think gun to your head, I think it would probably, and I wouldn't say as strong as run for the hills with it, but backtracking already, and I'm going to give my answer. Is this the bit where it just cuts and nobody hears the rest? Probably a 4-cylinder 718 GTS.
Oh.
I just think that will be on the turn now. Ironically, I've been asked to underwrite any. We haven't seen many transact, and I would have thought people would be bailing out of them, but they still seem to be really good news at the moment. So yeah, it's just I think you forced a gun to my head, and that's probably an answer I'd give at the moment.
Right, on that note, everyone with a 718 GTS better get them for sale sharpishly.
Yes, if you'd like to sell them, it's best to contact Karl.Meyer at the 211 the PorscheBuyer.com, isn't
That's
it?
it. Thanks, guys.
Karl, we'll get you on again. You've given predictions for the next 6 months, so we'll leave your head on the block for half a year.
Yeah, why not?
And get you back on for Series 3.
Cheers,
so thank you, mate, as always.
Thanks, Karl. Appreciate it. Thank you.